Hi, I'm Natasha Grinwala. I'm Artistic Director of Columboscope, and here in the UAE, I'm co-curating the upcoming Sharjah Biennial.
Hi, I'm Hit Man Gurung, artist curator, one of the curator of Columboscope, along with Protick and Sheelasha.
Columboscope is an interdisciplinary arts festival and a learning platform. Over the past 10 years, we have been progressively working with independent cultural organizations, arts foundations and artist collectives, especially from Sri Lanka, South Asia, and many parts of the world. What connects us is forms of cultural solidarities and affinities that allow for organic exchanges, informal ways of thinking critically about cultural resources and infrastructures from the precarities of our part of the world.
I've been a part of artist collective called Art in Nepal, and also part of initiatives called Kalakulo Invest in Kathmandu.
Way of the Forest is the 8th edition of Columboscope. It is the largest edition to date. It brings together ways of thinking about ecological damage, wreckage that is cast onto the earth body, looking at indigenous practices, ideas of sovereign placemaking, especially within the island ecology of Sri Lanka, firstly, that has rainforest, wetlands, mountain highlands, and then further with working with artists in the region who are in fact practicing farming, who have practices as teachers, as poets, and as guardians really of the environment in many cases. So this edition for us is also a way of thinking about the forest as a multi-species school, to think about what we can learn from the forest as this dense web and network that is about reciprocal exchange and collective survival. Here in Abu Dhabi, we have 19 artists from this edition of Columboscope out of 50 who presented their work at the festival in January in Colombo. Some of the artists are very young in their practice. This is the first time that they are sharing their work internationally. We also have artists who have been making for many years and have been playing the role of mentors. So the cross-generational exchange between cultural creative practices is something that we lay emphasis on as a platform. This is the second time that Columboscope features a traveling edition in collaboration with 421.
This is a work by Sonod Maharjan, one of the indigenous artists from Tistung, which is outskirts of Kathmandu Valley. In Tistung, it's one of the old settlement of Nepal, and there has been a lots of indigenous practice that acknowledge the forest as a sacred spirit, like Chun forest spirit. These practices are slowly, disappearing from the community, but still in a year, once they practice and acknowledge the Chun forest spirits, worshipping it as a guardians of, protectors of the community, and also it protect the farmland from the wild animals, and also it's always acknowledged before they start hunting, but now people don't do hunting there. And this Tistung Valley is very important in a way. Before there were highway connecting from India to Kathmandu Valley, so this was one of the main route to connect south to Kathmandu Valley. And Sonod Maharjan's family migrated from Tistung to Kathmandu because after the new highway was built, constructed, so these areas were slightly isolated. And Sonod always had this feelings of, disconnected with his homeland and also with his people and the community from Tistung. So his effort to going back to the areas and meeting people and exploring the natures and biodiversity of the area. So here you see multiple paintings and the letters that dedicated to the areas and the the inhabited and the peoples of the Tistung. So Sonod actively go on site and paint every day, and it's this process has become for him to reconnect with his people and also with the land and the nature from distance. So here we have a very important artist, the first generation artist after Soviet era, post-Soviet era from Central Asia, Saudat Maluba, and her, like intense research and films are based on lots of layers of multiple culture, diverse history. Her intense research and artistic practice investigate complex history and multi-cultures of the regions of this Central Asia. She interestingly animate and inanimate cross-wave different myths, rituals, and migratory legacies of the daily life of the Central Asian people. So here we have a 3 channels video and collage photographs from her. So the title of the video is Arsanobob, which is her ongoing research-based film. She's been working since few years. So Arsanob is a walnut reserve forest. It's like one of the largest reserve walnut forests located in Kyrgyzstan, populated by the Uzbek. So this area is very interesting, complex and social and political complex of religions, and also how later after the Soviet Union's, like this project present fragments of, animate and inanimate cosmologies of the areas, and the walnut trees release kind of this hallucination gases. So which is also many myth and the elders used to say the relationship of this hallucination effects of walnut tree. It is a space of frictions of religions and politics, and the film unfolds the ancestral, historical, hallucinatory memories of the relict forest. So here we have works by indigenous artist Jaitu Chakma from Chittagong Hill Tract in Bangladesh. His works based on how, like lots of these development projects like hydro dams and touristic sites has forced to displace lots of, like indigenous community from their homeland and move, like in other areas. Some of them also, like forced to move in India. His works are very much relations to the landforms and inhabited species that surrounded in the terrain. So you can see here like a 2 set of works, one triangular shapes works and this textile embroidered with bright color threads, which represent like the different species like hornbills and the forced migratory routes of the like Lusai community from Sajak Valley, which has now become like a touristic sites where lots of tourists like visit those areas and take images of this kind of traditional textile as a momentum of their trips. So it's a kind of commentary of the artist's daily experience.
Hi, my name is Nahla Al Tabaa. I'm an artist, I'm a chef and a cultural producer, working with the realms of the inorganic, the organic, trying to heal my constant tension that I have with a world that feels very rushed, very intense, very energetic, and trying to kind of heal that through me searching for magic, through spiritual ecology and alchemy and working with nature. I Sit Under Your Shade is a series of gestural drawings that I had started producing since 2022. And I really believe now that it was my yearning to depict a very specific construct of time and a dramatic light that I could no longer find. And this light was what happens when a tree and the sun dance together. It's this idea that the sun has filtered its light has been filtered through a tree and projects a shadow. I started this at SIF in Abu Dhabi and then created another iteration, which is the one you see here, under a tree in my family home in Amman, Jordan. And so what you see is almost like an animation of sorts or a sundial of sorts. So I Sit Under Your Shade is a series of gestural drawings that I've been creating for a few years now that really search for this idea of light being filtered through trees. This was also a project that was commissioned to me by 421 at a time where I desperately needed the leisure of sitting under a tree. I was at a point in my life where I couldn't afford that time. So the irony of needing a commission in order for me to buy time to actually spend in nature was also the irony in the work. And this tree and this relationship that I built with the tree over that summer is also one of the decisions that helped me move back to my homeland, to Amman, Jordan. A tree that no longer exists, but at least I was able to capture her shadow over one summer.
So here we have works by collective Kulagutu Bulangban. In the collective, the majority of members are from Pantheran Range community. So homeland of endangered fauna and flora and source of the large rivers. But these areas, the Pentagon Range area has been seized by the government for monocrop plantations, minings, and lodging settlement, forced to move indigenous community from those areas. This sonic piece was redeveloped by the collectives and in collaboration with the elders of the community in Debano refugee camp, where lots of this indigenous has been settled. Collective conducted several workshops and recreated this sonic piece in Debano camps with the elder of the community. So it was recreated from the memories of the elders, the call of forest and like non-verbal sound piece to transform the knowledge to the children of the camps, which the sounds are used as a sacred sounds, also sometimes playful, and also sometimes like the communications without word.
The artwork you see here draws from Audubon's long-term project Landversations, which has involved conversation around land sustainability and displacement. It also is a way of thinking about indigenous practices of ecological sustainability, inviting experts from different fields that you can hear in the podcast EcoFlow. The prints that you see here are from the drawing series that is called the Intimate series. And to me personally, when I look at these works and the haiku-like poems on the reverse side, they express around ecological grief, the loss of landscapes, terrains, mass displacements that are taking place due to the impact of climate change today. Pushpakantan Pakiyaraja draws direct inspiration from the landscape of eastern Sri Lanka, Batticaloa, where he is based. He is an educator and an artist. He has also been part of mentoring some of the younger artists who are part of this edition of Columboscope. Pushpakantan focuses on forms of earth-based sculptures that are very, very tactile, organic. They have a lot of texture that reflects on the scarring and wounding of the earth, especially in relation to wartime, to the enduring ways in which the earth is exploited, especially through landmines, and the ways that bodily memory and earth memory are intersecting. for enduring ways of recovering from intergenerational trauma, particularly through the lasting impact of Sri Lanka's civil war. This is a new project by the artist Rakibul Anwar, based in Dhaka. It particularly revolves around his neighborhood that is called Banasri. And Banasri represents an area that was lush and forested. It had wetlands and rice fields as well. And it is being impacted by large-scale construction work, also the movement of informal labor across the heaving city of Dhaka. All of these are plotted as daily observations and drawings by Rakibul. Rakibul closely observes the urban terrain and minutely observes the ways in which botanical life and water bodies continue to thrive despite pollutants, despite the massive pressure on these local ecologies. Sangeeta Mehti is an artist based in Calcutta. She has been working around indigenous communities' livelihoods, particularly studying and visiting over a longer time areas in eastern India where there have been rubber plantations, particularly as part of colonial inheritance and what has been marked then in the landscape, the ruination and erasure of forest lands, the displacement of communities who are native to those areas, and also the large-scale mining and extraction projects, particularly in this rural forested belt of India.
Hi, I'm Arulraj from Sri Lanka. I'm a visual artist. என்னுடைய ஓவியங்கள் வந்து அதிகமாக பிரதிபலிக்கிறது வந்து தேயிலை தோட்ட தொழிலாக சார்ந்து தான். அது காரணம் வந்து என்னோட வம்சாவளி. நான் வந்து இந்தியாவிலேருந்து இலங்கைக்கு வந்து ஒரு குடிபெயர்ந்த ஒரு ஆட்கள். அதாவது என்னுடைய ஓவியங்களில் வந்து அதிகமாக சொல்ல வருது என்னென்னா 200 வருடங்கள் முன்னே காலனிக்கல் பீரியட், அதாவது பிரிட்டிஷ் காலனி பீரியடில் வந்து எப்படி வந்து தொழிலாளர்களை வந்து இந்தியாவிலேருந்து இலங்கை கொண்டு வந்து எப்படி வந்து தேயிலை தோட்டத்துக்காக காடுகளை அழித்தாங்க, அந்த காடுகளை அழிக்கும் போது என்ன மாதிரி உயிரினங்கள் கொல்லப்பட்டது, அது மட்டும் இல்லாமல் ரயில்வே ஸ்டேஷன் அதில் வந்து எப்படி வந்து மக்களை துன்புறுத்தி எப்படி வந்து வேலை வாங்கினாங்க. ஸோ எடிங்கிற சீரீஸில் வந்து 4 ஒர்க் பண்ணியிருக்கேன். அந்த 4 ஒர்க்கும் என்ன பண்ணுறேன்னா என்னதுன்னா இலங்கையில் அந்த தேயிலை தோட்ட தொழிலாளர்கள் வந்து எப்படி இந்தியாவில் வந்து இலங்கைக்கு வந்து அவங்களோட உழைக்கும் போது அவங்களோட என்ன மாதிரி கஷ்டப்பட்டாங்க, ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி அவங்க கஷ்டப்படும் போது என்ன மாதிரி பாட்டு பாடினாங்க, ஸோ அந்த பாட்டு என்ன மாதிரி அவங்கள பாட்டை வந்து பாட்டுப்படியே வந்து வேலை செய்யும்போது அவங்களோட பிரதிபலிப்பு எப்படி இருந்துச்சு, ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி விஷயத்தை வந்து எடிட்டிங் சைஸில் பண்ணியிருக்கேன். இதில் வந்து 4 பீஸ் நான் 5 ஒர்க்ஸும் வந்து இதில் வச்சுருக்கிறேன். அந்த 5 ஒர்க்லேயும் வந்து நான் வந்து டீ ஸ்டேட் பீப்புள் வந்து யூஸ் பண்ணுற கத்தி, அதாவது மட்டை கத்தி லெவல் நைஃப், ஸோ அந்த ஒர்க்கை வந்து அந்த கத்தியை வந்து அவங்களோட பிரதிபலிப்பதுக்காக அந்த போர்ட்ரேட்டுக்கு மேலே வச்சுருக்கேன். அதோட அவங்க யூஸ் பண்ண சில கார்ட்ஸ், அதாவது நேம் கார்டுமாங்க, பேர் கார்டு, ஸோ அதையும் வந்து ஒட்டி மிக்ஸ்டு மீடியாவை டீ ஸ்டேட் ஓட்டியிருக்கேன். அது இல்லாமல் ஒவ்வொரு ஒர்க்லேயும் வந்து இன்க்ளூடாக பார்த்தா வந்து ஒவ்வொரு ஒர்க்லேயும் ஒவ்வொரு விஷயத்தான் பிரதிபலிச்சிருக்கேன். ஒன்றில் வந்து என்னென்னா அவங்களோட ஊர் வந்து எப்படின்னா டீ ஸ்டேட் ஒவ்வொரு நேமும் வந்து ஒவ்வொரு மிருகத்திற பேரையும் ஒவ்வொரு தாவரங்கள பேரையும் வந்து இன்க்ளூட் பண்ணிடுச்சு. அதில் வந்து ஒரு பேரும் சொல்ல போனால் வந்து குரங்கு மலை. அதில் வந்து அங்கே வேலை செய்கிற பீப்புள், அதாவது டீ ஸ்டேட் பீப்புள், ஒரு லேடியாக வந்து ஒரு ஊமனை வந்து நான் படம் வரைஞ்சிருக்கேன். அந்த படத்துக்கு வேலை வந்து நிறையா வந்து காம்போசிஷன் பண்ணி நான் பண்ணியிருக்கேன். இன்டூ டீ ஃபாரஸ்ட், அது தேயிலை காட்டுக்குள்ளே எப்படி மிருகங்கள் எப்படி வாழுது, அது என்ன மாதிரி வந்து அது முன்னுக்கு அதில் இடங்கள் தான் நம்ம தேயிலை வர முன்னுக்கு எப்படி வந்து காடுகள் அழிக்கப்பட்டுச்சு, இப்போ வந்து அதில் இடங்களை வந்து அது தேடி வருது. பட் நாங்கள் வந்து அடித்து விரட்டுறோம் அதை. அப்புறம் இன்டூ சிலோன் ரயில்வே, ஸோ அதை பிரதிபலிக்கிறது இந்த படம். சிலோன் ரயில்வே வந்து எப்படி வந்து இளைஞர் குரோத் ஆகுச்சு, என்ன மாதிரி குரோத் ஆகுச்சு, அது குரோத் ஆகிறதுக்கு வந்து இந்தியா வம்சாவளி மக்கள் எவ்வளோ பாடுபட்டாங்க, ஸோ அந்த பாடுபட்ட இடம், அந்த அவங்க பாடுபடும் போது அவங்களோட கஷ்டங்கள், ஸோ அதில் பிரதிபலிக்கிறதுனா அங்கேருந்து எவ்வளோ மிருகங்கள் வேட்டைப்பட்டுச்சு, ரயில்வே ஸ்டேஷனில் எவ்வளோ மிருகங்கள் வேட்டைப்பட்டுச்சு, என்ன மாதிரி அவங்களோட மிருகங்கள் கொல்லப்பட்டன, மிருகங்களை வந்து எப்படி வந்து ரயில்வே ஸ்டேஷனுக்காக யூஸ் பண்ணிடுறாங்க, முக்கியமாக வந்து யானைகள் எப்படி யூஸ் பண்ணாங்க, ஸோ அதை பிரதிபலிக்கிறது இந்த படம். அடுத்து வந்து முக்கியமாக வந்து இது என்ன மதர் போர்ட்ரைட், ஸோ இதுவும் வந்து இது மறைக்கப்பட்ட அவங்க அம்மா வந்து, ஸோ நான் வந்து அந்த வம்சாவளி, அதாவது இந்தியா வம்சாவளி தேயிலை எஸ்டேட்டில் வந்து வந்திருக்கேன். ஸோ அதனால எங்கள் அம்மா எங்களோட ஃபேமிலியும் ஸோ அந்த டீ எஸ்டேட் தான் வேலை செய்கிறாங்க. அடுத்து வந்து இன்னொரு எடிங்கிற சீரீஸில் இங்கே வந்து நான் புதுசாக பண்ண ஒரு விஷயம், அதாவது தேயிலைத்தூரில் வந்து நிலம் சார்ந்த ஒரு விஷயம். அது நிலத்தை வந்து நீ இளைஞர் மேற்பரப்பை பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, மலையத்தை பார்த்தீங்கன்னா எப்போயுமே வந்து பசுமையாக இருக்கும், தேயிலை காடுகள் தான் நிறைஞ்சிருக்கும். பட் அதில் ஃபாரஸ்ட் நேராக அழிக்கப்பட்டிருக்கும். ஸோ தேயிலை காடுகள் நிறைஞ்சிருந்தாலும் மேலே பார்க்கும்போது ரொம்ப பசுமையான ஒரு தேயிலை நிலப்பரப்பாக இருக்கும். பட் கீழே பார்க்கும்போது ஒரு காய்ந்த நிலப்பரப்பு, அதாவது காய்ந்த நிலப்பரப்புன்னு சொல்கிறது என்ற மக்களை, ஸோ அங்கே வாழ்கின்ற மிருகங்கள், ஸோ அது ரெண்டுமே வந்து ஒரு இடர்பாடுக்குள்ளே தான் வாழ்கிறது. ஸோ அந்த விஷயத்தை இதில் பிரதிபலிச்சிருக்கேன்.
Hello, I am Fatima Rukshana. I am from Sri Lanka. Recently, I did my master degree art and design at Beacon House National University in Pakistan. Really, I need to describe about this practice. My practice give voice those who have narratives have been marginalized by gender hierarchy, culture and social political discrimination. I weaved and created these works abandoned and neglected, especially of parts of tree, seeds, roots, branch and leaves, that kind of material. And I include in the paper, cloth and canvas also. I need to show how the women, they get their power through the violence. Anyhow, they face the violence, but it become a freedom and strength. You can see my works. Kind of, I am try to show mysterious way. Some parts I weave. Color also like a traditional. It's a dry colors. It changing by the different rebirthing. It's like a green and dry color. It's like a life circle. I try to show in here. Every my practice, I feel it's come from my birthplace, especially my birthplace. It's Sri Lanka northwestern part. There it's a kind of traditional setup. It's a rural area. Artisans, they worked mat weaving, basket weaving, chair patterns weaving. Grandmother and father, they also know how to weave the chair patterns and mat weavings, especially basket techniques. So I think that is significantly influenced to my work.
The artist Shiraz Baiju has been doing long-term research in the Indian Ocean world. The relations between the islands, particularly of Afrasian cultural heritage, and how these islands carry their own ecological footprint. Mauritius, Madagascar, Reunion Island, all of these have been sites in which he has traveled and worked extensively. The new project, Botanical Shrines, reflects on the histories in the plantation landscape that are not only about exploitation but also about marronage and collective survival. On these small altars, we see his miniature paintings that are made with reference to colonial botanical manuals, but also specimens of shells and seed pods that reflect on these island ecologies and on histories of surviving the plantation landscape. This is part of a series in which he is reflecting on ocean navigation and cultural networks formed by diasporic communities moving through the Indian Ocean world. These tapestries are organized as sails. They almost remind us of the dhows that are also seen along the creeks of the UAE. And the fabrics that are used within them are Swahili textiles, but also batik from Sri Lanka. So there is an entwinement of different material practices and layers of this kind of cultural inheritance really that comes from ocean-based kinships. In this segment, we have works by 3 artists. A project by Sarmila Suryakumar and Piranella Krishnaraja from Jaffna. Sarmila has been trained in the visual arts. She comes from a lineage of woodcrafts community, artisans who have been working over generations in wood carving in the Northern Peninsula. She as a woman is singular in her learning of the woodcraft from the village Tirunelveli, where there are over 1,000 families of artisans. In this project, she focuses on tree worship and has followed the life of particular sacred trees, many of which are located around Kovils, temple complexes around Jaffna. Together with the photographer Piranella, they have carried out rare photo documentation of the learning process of wood carving, as well as the ways in which Sharmila has made the practice contemporary and thought of particularly the way that women relate to ancient trees in this landscape. In this series particularly, you see the mystical life of trees, the ways that rituals are marked around trees, moments such as birth, death, marriage, longing for childbirth. All of these are marked around the life of trees. Sarmila particularly engraves in a way that she also thinks about the flow of the wood, and rather than moving against the grain, really observing which tree is ready to be carved. And this is again an ancient practice that also thinks about coexistence with one's surround while taking on ancient practice like wood sculpting. We also have the work here of Karunasiri Vijay, who is senior artist and pedagogue. He has been making drawings across the rainforests and dry zones in Sri Lanka. He is also said to be a tree whisperer in the way that he minutely observes trees, the wood wide web, as Suzanne Simard may say, the ways that trees nourish each other, pass on nutrients from the branch to the root system, from the canopy to the forest floor. All of these are marked within decades-long studies of tree life. Tamara Jayasundara's practice acts in collaboration with the elements. These sculptures that you see here have minute textures and markings, layers that have been formed through the movement of soil, mushrooms, and a lot of the unseen has left its own marking and place within these sculptures. Over several years, she makes one piece that is then arising literally back from the deep soil to the surface and then placed into the white cube. This is a new piece that has been created especially for this exhibition, and in this we witness how Tamara has observed the process of metallurgy and studied really the ways in which natural shapes of flora and fauna can be resonant against a material such as metal.
Ayubowan, I'm Pathum Dharmarathna. I'm from Sri Lanka. I'm a movement artist and I'm a movement researcher, and I'm also a fitness trainer and dancer. Mage gama tamai ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ කෑගල්ල කියන ප්‍රදේශයේ සබරගමු පළාතේ ගන්තුන කියන ගම. ඉතින් ඒක ඇතුළේ තමයි මම ජීවත් වුණේ, හැදුනේ, වැඩුණේ. ඉතින් ඒ පරිසරයත් එක්ක. ඉතින් මම මගේ කලා නිර්මාණය සඳහා පාදක වෙන්නේ මගේ ජීවිතය ගැන සහ මට මොනවද හිතෙන්නේ ප්‍රසන්ට් මූවමන්ට් එක කියන එක මට කතා කරන්න ඕන වුණා. සහ මම කියන්නේ කවුද කියන එක මට හැම වෙලේම ප්‍රශ්නයක්. ඉතින් ඒක හොයාගෙන යන ගවේෂණය කරගෙන යන ගමනක තමයි මගේ මේ භාවනා කියන නිර්මාණය මම එළියට දාන්න සහ මම පරීක්ෂණ කටයුත්තක් විදියට කරගෙන ගියේ. ඉතින් මම හැදුන වැඩුණ ගම තමයි මේ භාවනා නිර්මාණය ඇතුලේ තියෙන වීඩියෝ ෆුටේජස් වල තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් මේක ඇතුලේ මට කතා කරන්න ඕන වුණා මොනවද අපිට දැනෙන්නේ නේචර් එකට ගියාම, මොනවද අපිට හිතෙන්නේ මේ මොහොත ඇතුලේදී නේචර් එකට ගියාම කියන එක. සහ ඇත්තටම මගේ ගම ඇතුලේ තමයි මගේ ජීවිතේ ආරම්භ වෙන්නේ, පටන් ගන්නෙ, ප්‍රශ්න ගැටලු ගැන මට දැනෙන්නේ, තේරෙන්නේ. ඉතින් මම නර්තකයෙක් විදියට, නර්තනකරුවෙක් විදියට නර්තනය ආරම්භ කරන්නේ ට්‍රැඩිෂනල් ඩාන්ස් ෆෝම් එකකින්. ඒ කියන්නේ ලංකාවේ තියෙනවා ට්‍රැඩිෂනල් ඩාන්ස් ෆෝම් තුනක්: කැන්ඩියන්ස් ඩාන්ස්, ලෝ කන්ට්‍රි ඩාන්ස් and සබරගමු ඩාන්ස්. මම මගේ ඩාන්ස් කැරියර් එක පටන් ගන්නේ කැන්ඩියන් ඩාන්සර් කෙනෙක් විදිහට. ඉතින් මේ කැන්ඩියන් ඩාන්සින් කරන පරිසරය තියෙන්නේ මගේ ගම වටපිටාවෙමයි. එතකොට මට කැන්ඩියන් ඩ්‍රම්ස් සවුන්ඩ් ඇහිලා තියෙනවා, කැන්ඩියන් ක්ලොත් මම දැකලා තියෙනවා. මට ඒ ගැන යම්කිසි අදහසක් තිබ්බා නර්තනය ගැන සහ නර්තනයේ පිටිපස්සේ තියෙන දේවල් ගැන සහ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ හියුමැනිටි එක ගැන මොකක්ද කියන එක ගැන මට යම්කිසි අදහසක් තිබ්බා. ඉතින් මම ගම ඇතුලේ මම වින්ද සුබහදාම මට නගරෙන් එළිය දකින්න හම්බුන්නේ නැහැ සහ ගම ඇතුලේ තිබ්බ මේ සුබහදාම ඇතුලේ තියෙන දේවල් මට ගවේෂණය කරන්න ඕන වුණා සහ සුබහදාමක් ඇතුළට ගියාම තමයි අපිට තේරෙන්නේ මොනවද මේ තියෙන ගස් ගල් ජලය. ඉතින් මට මගේ නර්තන ගවේෂණය ඇතුලේ මට හොයන්න අවශ්‍යතාවයක් ඇති වුණා මොනවද මේ සුබහදාම ඇතුලේ තියෙන materials වල qualities මොන වගේද ඒ වගේ මොන වගේ movement explore කරන්න පුළුවන්ද කියන එක සහ ඒ explore කරන movement හරහා මට මොන වගේ idea share කරගන්න පුළුවන්ද අනිත් බලන අයත් එක්ක කියන එක. ඉතින් මේක ඇතුලේ සමහර තැන්වල තියෙන ගල්වල ගස්වල වතුරේ තියෙන qualities මම පාවිච්චි කරා මේ නිර්මාණය ඇතුලේ චලන ගවේෂණය සඳහා. ඉතින් මේ නිර්මාණය ඔස්සේ මට කියන්න ඕනි වුණා එකක් සුබහදාම සමග රැඳෙන්න සහ සුබහදාමට ආදරය කරන්න ඒකේ මේ මොහොතේ ඉන්න. එතකොට ඔයාට දැනගන්න පුළුවන් ඔයා කවුද කියන එක සහ ස්පේස් එක කියන්නේ මොකද්ද කියන එක. මොකද අපිට හම්බෙලා තියෙන මේ ශරීරය ඔස්සේ තමයි අපිට අපිව ගවේෂණය කරන්න වෙන්නේ සහ අපි කවුද කියන එක අපිට අඳුනා ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් භාවනා හරහා මට ඕනේ වුණා මේ ගවේෂණයේ යෙදෙන්න සහ මේ පිළිබඳ අදහසක් යම්කිසි සිතුවිල්ලක් මේක බලන අයට ගෙනත් දෙන්න.
Hi, I'm Moza Almatrooshi. I'm an artist and a chef, and my practice revolves around food and farming and bees. In this work titled There is an Edible Gold, I went around following a beekeeper who was trying to harvest honey from the native flora in the UAE across the seasons, and I was able to observe how a beekeeper with such a practice is able to raise bees and harvest honey. I was able to see what kind of crisis this introduces to the wild bees, who are much smaller in size and are getting crowded by the domesticated bees, and what happens to the bees in general after these production cycles. And a lot of my work really looks at these practices where people like beekeepers and farmers have to become pragmatic in the way that they work with animals and the land, and how that can pose a climate crisis that keeps unfolding, and how they become entangled in these practices as well. Additional to the film, there's going to be an installation of palm tree logs, which have been a traditional way of keeping bees in the mountainous regions in the UAE and Oman. And this is to introduce the idea that perhaps these methods are more sustainable for beekeeping in the present time.
நான் தஜேந்திரன், இலங்கை யாழ்ப்பாணத்திலிருந்து வாரன். இது அபுதாபிக்கு என்னுடைய முதலாவது விஜயம். இது ஒரு ஜேர்னி, உண்மையிலே ஒரு ஜேர்னி என்று ஒரு யாத்திரை. இது எனக்கு ஒரு யாத்திரை. இந்த நிலத்தின் பொம்மை, இந்த நிலத்தில் இருக்கிற மரங்கள், இங்கே வாழுற மக்கள், அவதார உள்ளுணர்வு கூட நான் இங்கே என்னுடைய ஆர்ட் ஒர்க்ஸை செய்திருக்கிறேன். நான் இங்கே வந்ததிலிருந்து இங்கே கலெக்ட் பண்ணின மெட்டீரியல்ஸ், இங்கே ஒரு மலை பிரதேசம் இருக்குது, ஃபுஜைரா மவுண்டன் லேண்ட்ஸ்கேப். அங்கே நான் போய் அங்கே கற்கள் வேறு சில பொருட்களை சேகரித்து 4-1 ஆர்ட் கேம்பஸில் நான் ஆர்ட் ஒர்க்ஸ் செய்திருக்கிறேன். இது உண்மையில் ஒரு யாத்திரை என்று தான் சொல்ல வேணும். முதல் லாகூரில் இருந்து ஆரம்பித்த அந்த கலைப்பயணம், யாழ்ப்பாணம், கொழும்பு, லாகூரில் என்னுடைய மேற்படிப்பை தொடர்ந்த காலத்தில் லாகூரில் வளர்ந்திருந்த கொண்டல் மரங்களும் அங்கே கேட்ட பாங்கொலிகளும் எனக்குள்ளே கிளர்த்தின அந்த உள்ளுணர்வு கூட நான் ஒரு கவிதையை எழுதினேன். அந்த கவிதைக்கு மறுதாக்கமாக ஓவியத்தை வரைஞ்சேன். அது மோஸ்ட்லி தாபனக்கலை, இன்ஸ்டாலேஷன்ஸ் என்ற ஒரு வடிவத்துக்களால் வெளிப்பட்டது. லாகூரில் இருந்து யாழ்ப்பாணம் திரும்பி பிறகு கொழும்பு இப்போ அபுதாபி வரைக்கும் அந்த பயணம் தொடர்ந்திருக்கு. என்னுடைய கவிதைகளோடையும் ஓவியத்தோடையும் தியானத்தோடையும் நான் பயணம் செய்து கொண்டிருக்கிறேன் என்று சொல்லலாம்.
Karachi Al Jamia was founded in 2015 by artists Shahana Rajani and Zahra Malkani. They operate nomadically, moving on the land and waters, focusing on the coastal port city and urban trade center, Karachi. They've been working with indigenous rights alliances, with organizations such as the Pakistani Fisherfolk Forum, and observing what they call eco-pedagogies that exist at the intersection of radical practices of knowledge building and artistic work. They've created publications, they've organized several field trips and workshops, all of which have been documented over 10 years and that you can experience here through videos as well as audio pieces. This for us is also the concluding space of Way of the Forest, and it is our approach too of thinking around curriculums that exist outside of formal educational infrastructure.